Okay,
Got
PLC
it.
number 8. Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, I need to share my screen, señorita Avi. Good? Okay. Okay, let's go Canva again. Sorry. Okay. Okay, this is my PSC. The role of explicit instruction, POC number 8, by me, Zulma Vargas. Okay, first, I have type of intervention, type of explicit instruction, and corrective feedback and positive feed. I'm sorry about this. I didn't finish feedback. What is this? Okay. Type of intervention could be direct and is it in indirect or something like that? Yeah, I think I got that right. Okay, I have my Wally. Are you okay? But I cannot see my okay. Whoa, what did I did? Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do it like that because I cannot see you girls, okay?
We can't see your screen anymore.
Oh God, wait a second. Let me try to share again. Oh God. It should be better, you know, like I don't know what's going on. Like, okay, let me try this again, girl. No, this is not what I want. Oh no. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry about that. It's supposed to be right away. Okay. We're going here. Okay. Type of intervention, direct and indirect. I have here like direct is like explicit step-by-step direction. We have to make sure that the learner get to the point before moving to the next step. It provides like an explicit instruction. It keeps focused like direct attention on the target, and invites to be like intentional, which is have the learning to have the word say like the intention to learn, and try like an example, like I'm gonna try to use I'm gonna try to use how to use my Cricut machine so I can, you know, get knowledge about what I wanted. And if I wanted to cook like a special dish, I could go and get like a recipe and follow that direction. Okay. And in direct, is set up with opportunities for the learner without a specific what they need. I'm sorry, the target with a specific target of the instruction. No, we do not provide them anything. It's like it implicit. Okay. It goes like a spontaneously. And after that, it could be like incidental learning, which is unplanned. It's when we expose the learner to the stimulant. And
Roma, you have 5 minutes left.
oh God. Okay. Don't make me nervous, girl. Okay, let me do this real quick. There is two type of, well, inductive and wait a second, deductive. Implicit instruction. Okay. Deductive instruction provide the learner like the information right away and give rule and examples of what the student needs to do. What else? Like inducted ones involve the learner, like to find out, to figure it out, what is going to be the next step. The teacher will be showing like examples and involve the learner, like to detect the gap or detect whatever is going to happen next. I did this real quick. Oh, I think I didn't do the right thing. Wait. Okay, yes. Okay, corrected. I got like corrected feedback. It leads to a positive change. Promote attention to the form, just write out to the output. Push the learning to produce the correct form, and which with the positive feedback, it's like you're doing great, you're gonna do better. It focus more in this. I would say, did you hear that? It focus mass. I'm sorry, it focus more in the strength of the student. Okay, you're doing great, you're gonna do better next time, maybe, but it focus there, like, okay, it's good. Thank you. Okay. Cool. Okay, go ahead. Next, I'm sorry, I can hardly see my face here.
You have to stop sharing Zoom.
Okay, I'm sorry. Stop sharing, stop. What do I do that? I'm sorry. Oh, here. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Oh, God.
Okay. You're learning. You're learning. Let's come back. There you go. Okay. So this is my. You guys can hear me? Can now?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. My three topics this week were concept-based instruction, consciousness, raising instructions, and feedback. The first one that I went with is concept-based instruction. Concept-based instruction say that is conceptually organized grammatical knowledge. The grammatical features are the link, the information, the forms, and the semantic function concept. They have two main researchers. One was Landfall in 2007. Uh, he argued that learners need access to scientific concepts, and this consists of the direct presentation of scientific concepts about grammar, followed by activities that provide practice. He copy or he piggyback or he went with Galperion's systematic functional definition, where he said that instruction needs to be organized around coherent theoretical units, which involves the direct presentation of the scientific concept. The instruction needs to provide material instantiation. I can pronounce that one. Instantiation of the target concept. In other words, charts, diagrams, or something that represents the concept for the student. Also, the learners need to verbalize the concept, and this is very important. Once you give them the concept, they have to verbalize it, because only by verbalizing the concept, there's going to be a full understanding and what they call the internalization of the concept. That's very, very, very important. And this will be done by performing or producing different activities. The other researchers were Negrella and Landfall as well. And their research suggested that when the students are given explicit instructions and then verbalize and greeting the scenarios at the end, their explanation will be more coherent. The ability of the students to explain more coherent and accurate, it was an indication, they say, that the internalization of the concept was taking place in their research. Learners were able to use formal features associated with the target concept more accurately at the end of the study. What was the main critics of this one? They say that the study demonstrated that the concept was organized in, the study demonstrated that conceptually organized instruction might help develop clearly explicit knowledge, but it doesn't show enough evidence that will result as implicit knowledge itself. And the study was not comparative, did not conclude that explicit knowledge was more effective than implicit, and that the study was limited only to university students, so we don't know if it works in other settings. A classroom example of that is when we teach students about animal kingdoms in a biology class, and all they can do is understand the concept and the material and verbalize it and memorize it because that's pretty much it. My second topic was con- consciousness reason raising instruction. Oh my gosh, my um, there are two types of language exercises, and one of them is what they call consciousness raising instruction. This is the when there are instructions or tasks that are designed to help learners construct their own explicit rules about structural features. This does not include any comprehension or production practice activities. It's just the understanding. Implicit knowledge is not affected by the explicit knowledge, but implicit does contribute to explicit. Makes of the oh my gosh, 2 minutes. Makes use of the appropriate tasks that guide learning to analyze the data and does not require production of the feature or improve. So it pretty much focus on presentation, in the presentation, in the final job. Um, what else can I say about it's effective helping the students to develop explicit knowledge, but does it really help for the implicit? I don't know. They didn't conclude that. A classroom example is giving students, the students writing examples for them to underline the verb to be. They understand the concept, but they are not really doing anything with it. And last but not least, our all-time favorite, feedback. When we talk about feedback, we can, where is it? We are, feedback is considered one of the most important elements in all of the forms of explicit instruction. Feedback can be positive or can be negative. Like Suma already explained us, the corrective positive feedback also can be comprehension based or it can be production based. Comprehension based is when you indicate if the learner has done correctly in the input, or production when not only allow the learning to see the mistake or if the structure that they created is correct, but also you show them then. Timing for the feedback is very important. Sometimes we think that it might make a difference. It can be done during the activity or at the end of the activity. One of the types of feedback is, as soon as talk, corrective feedback. This one assists the learning, but explicit ones are more effective. They are they allow the learners to carry out the comparison, and that with the production that they do with what the teacher wants. And this is the most important, the corrective feedback is the most important one for the acquisition of L2. And there are different theories that back up this, like the cognitive and the social, because both of them take in consideration that corrective feedback is the most important one. And the last but not least, my classroom example, I think we all do correct feedback in any kind of form every day in the classroom. As you interact with your students, you have an opportunity to give them feedback. Either you decide to do it during the activity as you are correcting as they are talking, or you wait until they're finished everything and say, hey baby, that's not how you say it, you're gonna do it like this. And this is it for me. Let me stop. I know. Stop, 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 stop. ask. Abby, go ahead.
Okay,
All yours.
I'm gonna go ahead and start.
Yes. Ignore. Letting me do it. Got it? There you go. Woo!
Okay, so I gotta find it.
I love that picture.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let me zoom in. I like this Padlet thing, but it's hard to make the arrows do what I want it to do. Okay, so today's hot topics for PLC number 8. We've done a lot of these. So the ones that I wanted to do are production-based instruction versus comprehension-based instruction, corrective feedback, and processing instructions. All super interesting topics. So let's get right to it. Okay, so practice makes perfect. Practice actually makes progress. So I put a little GIF up there because that's fun to look at. And so this one's going to be production-based instruction. I'm an advocate for production-based instruction. I know not everybody is, but I think it's great. Helps us practice. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. It's focused on the learner being able to produce the language correctly. So really we're focused more on obviously the production. It's in the name. The most recognizable approach within this practice is presentation, practice, and production. And we talked about a little bit about this last week. This is kind of what scaffolding is based off of. You model it first, and then you practice it with your students, and then they do it on their own. So it's kind of like stair steps. We're stair stepping up. We're building our scaffolding up, and that can apply to different things. But this is just one of the ways that we can use scaffolding in our classroom. And it's based in the skill learning theory that learning a language is like learning any other skill. Partially I agree, partially I do not agree. That would take a long time for me to pick apart. But I do think that it is kind of just like some of it is just learning, just like we learn anything else. And then it begins with declarative knowledge, and I agree with that as well. I think we focus in the lexical first. We focus in all the semantic terms like the words and all that, and we start with learning words and vocabulary, and then we later transition into the grammatical knowledge of things. The book lists several different studies that prove that language learning with practice led to more automatic control of the language. But then they also listed some other studies for comprehension-based instruction that proved the same thing. So I think there's this ongoing debate, and really the biggest question that all of these studies raised is it implicit knowledge or just automized behavior? And as we can see from the audiolingual method, that is a lot of automized behavior because we're repeating together as a class and you're filling in the gaps. So if I were to say, have a good, and then the class would say day, how is your day? And so the class would learn the vocabulary word day, and then they would use it in different ways in the sentence. And so at some point it does seem like automized behavior, but I think if the learner has the opportunity to actually practice it outside of that setting, that it does turn into implicit knowledge because they use it in their everyday life, because not everybody has the opportunity to sit in a classroom. And so my classroom example is asking students to repeat their vocabulary words and practice using them in a sentence with a partner. I love letting my class repeat with me. That way they can work on their pronunciation because it's really hard to do it by yourself sometimes. Okay, and then comprehension-based instruction. This emphasizes the importance of input in learning, which I also think is really important. TPR is the main preface for this. It's created by Asher in 1977, and students respond to language stimuli non-verbally. So whether they're writing, most of the time TPR is more used in more of the elementary school settings. Sit down, stand up, raise your hand, close your eyes, point to your nose, point to your ears, things like that, because the natural approach came out around the same time, and it says students cannot produce language until they have comprehended what they have heard. On one point, I believe that this is true, that you can't technically produce language and know what you're saying, but I do think that you can still make the sounds. even if you don't know exactly what you're saying all the time. I'm on the seesaw. I feel like I just switch back and forth depending on the day. But the question against this method then is, how will learners move to the comprehensive knowledge, from comprehensive knowledge to productive skills? So how, if we're not speaking in class and if we're just taking it all in and we're trying to just soak everything that everyone is saying in, when are we going to actually have the chance to move that to a productive skill? So we kind of want something that's like the best of both worlds of both of these methods whenever we consider them. And so my classroom example here is having learners listen to an interview in the L2 for comprehension and then answering questions about the grammar used in the L2. So maybe if the person being interviewed was talking about an event that happened in the past and they're picking out every single irregular verb that the person uses, or just the ones that they might hear over and over again. Okay. Corrective feedback is my next one. We've all touched on feedback. It's really cool. But I think this is super interesting.
I was going to use the same one, the same thing.
I love it. So feedback can be positive or negative, like we've already said, and it looks different. This is crazy to me because I think it's really cool how it looks different in production-based versus comprehension-based methods. And so comprehension-based lets the learner know that they have processed the input correctly. So maybe a learner is turning in sentences that they've written and you're going to mark it wrong and say, yeah, you haven't processed that incorrectly, or yes, you've done that correctly. Good job. But production-based, and this is why I lean more towards this method, is that it helps the learner know if they produce the target structures correctly, and then it also guides the learner on how to restructure their utterances. So not only do they have a method of being able to know if they're correct or not, but they also have this thing that we like to call human computer, where they can test that off of a native speaker or someone who is more experienced in the language, and they can help them practice what kind of utterance is correct versus what might not be correct. Corrective feedback can occur at different times within learning. So either the teacher might incorporate it during the lesson, or they might wait to do it at the end, just like we said earlier. And then there's still also debate, and it has been determined, however, that explicit feedback is more useful than implicit feedback. And I would have to agree, because implicit feedback sometimes can guide the learner to go to their own conclusions or draw their own conclusions about something in the classroom, and maybe it's still a little bit incorrect. But if we're telling the learner explicitly, hey, here's what's happening, here's what's going on, here's how you can fix it, then they're going to be able to understand it more. And then we're talking about cognitive comparison as well being a factor in corrective feedback. And so the question is, throughout cognitive comparison, is there a need for specific grammar lessons? In my personal opinion, I do think yes, there's a need for specific grammar lessons, just because I don't want learners to walk around not knowing what they're like, why they're saying what they're saying and how to say it. Or if you need to write a paper or fill out a job application and you want to have correct grammar and you want to know why an adjective comes before a noun and what's an adjective and what's a noun, I do think that it's specific. Do I think it's essential to language learning? No, I think you can do without it, but I think that it's pretty essential in my world to have grammar lessons. And so a classroom example is a student receives explicit feedback when they make an error in their speech and their teacher corrects them. So maybe the student says, these are the shoes of me. Okay, so I was trying to think of like my Spanish direct translations, because this is kind of what it would sound like if you were to translate it directly. And the teacher might say, try saying, these are my shoes instead. So just trying to restructure the way that we say things. And so that's a little example of explicit feedback. And then I have processing instruction. So we're trying to process all these things in our minds. And so Van Patten says that in 1996, learners have to create a system in their minds of how they will process input they will receive. Either the learner will process the semantics of the input or the form, which I already talked about. So a lot of times we choose to process words before we process grammar and the way that it looks, because words are easier for us to just see and be like, oh, that's different. Oh, that's new. Oh, I know that word. But putting them in order is a whole different game. It's like putting all the puzzle pieces together. And so the book says a really interesting quote. It says the purpose of instruction is to help the learner overcome the default processing strategies. And so I put under here, learners tend to default to certain methods of processing in their mind. And that's so true. We'll tend to default to either just looking at the form or just looking at the words and not have that blend together, or we will default to processing information. Like we said, that fossilization can occur if we process things in the wrong way or in the wrong order, or if we have the complete misunderstanding of what's going on in the L2. So the following is what's recommended by Van Patten: is to present one thing at a time, keep meaning in focus, move from sentences to connected discourse. So sentences first, and then connected discourse like passages and things like that. Use both oral and written input, and keep the learner's processing strategies in mind. And I think this is super practical for us. And it's really cool to be able to see how teachers can use this, not only in the ESL classroom, but in other classrooms too, in content classrooms too. And then the last thing I have is that processing instruction can be more effective for receptive knowledge than productive knowledge. And so obviously, if we're just going to be sitting, listening, it is going to be more receptive than productive. And then my classroom example is the teacher gives a lesson on the regular past tense in English. The teacher models how to write in the past tense form of English. Then the students are given structured input through sentences in which they have to determine if they are in the past tense. So big thing about processing instruction is also having that structured input. But that's all for me. Let's stop sharing. Okay.
Okay. And I think we should have. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep.
And we exactly now we have 30 minutes. We have finished with 30 minutes. You see, right on time. So we have discussed the 5 topics that we consider the most important, and across any kind of instruction that we want to see, they're explicit or implicit, we have found that always, in any kind of instruction, either by language acquisition or any subject of matter, feedback is the most important thing. That's why
is.
we all agree to make it topic number 1, because feedback is a big, it's so broad that it can be for negative, it can be like I would say comprehension based or production based. It can be given either within the activity or at the end of the activity. But the most important now for L2, and this is our topic number 2, is going to be the corrective feedback. Go ahead, Earl.
Okay, well, I was gonna say that for the correct feedback, it always will lead to the child or the kid or the ESL learner or the L2 learner to get like a positive change. Okay, it will push him also to produce like the correct form, that how to do it, or we could ask it like in a corrected feedback, like what would you do it, could you do it like differently, or if it's something else that you could do, like what else can I say? It could modify the output once the child have said what he needs to say. It could be modified, and I think it's the best way, that one.
I agree. I think that corrective feedback, I think that's the validation that every learner is always looking for. We're always looking for, how can we improve? How can we be better? Like, please validate me that I'm actually making sense right now, and that I'm not just saying all of these random sounds at one time. And so I think it's really important in the way that we go about corrective feedback too, in a way that encourages the learner, and also in a way that, like, I don't know how to say this. I'm trying to think. I can't even think in English right now. Just in a way that propels the learner to move on towards more learning, and to be encouraged
a way that pushes and engages all of their cognitive skills. Okay. So
Okay. Number 3 was types of explicit instruction. That's why we had agreed. Silva, go ahead.
Okay, I have the type of explicit instruction are deductive and inductive. To me, inductive is like make the student like exploration, like do like kind of a interaction, involve the learners to look for it, to figure it out, what's coming next, what is the task, what is it supposed to be looking for, you know, and sometimes like kind of like encourage them, make them feel like, oh, I'm gonna find out this, I want to learn, I want to do this. And deductive is kind of like we'll give them like the whole thing. It goes from the big things to the less thing, like the big, that how do I say this, like they provide them like the whole like the whole instruction, and it comes what they really wanted them to get or to learn. It says that this approach is very good for those kids that have like those that are slow learners. That's what I got.
Yes, it was said that the deductive instruction is the most appropriate one for not only the slow learners but also for other kind of students where language acquisition. That's the one that is more beneficial for all students. Then for number 4, we have types of interventions, right, Abby?
Yes. Yes. And so Zulma, you had types of intervention too, didn't you?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, you got me that one too. Okay, good. I don't mind. Well, I'm gonna try to do it real quick. Okay, we're talking about like direct, the type of interventions are direct and indirect. The direct, it goes like a explicit instruction. Okay, it could be predetermined and planned. It's intentional, and the student have the intention to learn, and it's kind of like I said before, if I wanted to do something, I will go and look for it and follow that direction. Or if I wanted to do something, I will just learn how to do it and go and do it. In the other one, indirect, it's like setting up like opportunities to make the student like find like a specific instruction or go to the target. There's not explicit information. Okay, it could be the instruction is delivered like spontaneously. It could happen, and it could be it is incidental learning because it's had been unplanned, and it's exposure to the stimuli. Examples like, okay, I'm gonna read this book and learn new words because it's fun.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that takes us to our 5th one, which is processing instruction. And that's what I had. And I think it ties a nice bow on everything because we're talking about explicit instruction, but how do we give instruction in a way where our learners are going to process it when we're thinking about English as a second language learner or just L2 learners in general, no matter what language they're learning? And being in the classroom and being an ESL teacher and it being my first year, being able to see there's a lot of inductive reasoning in even the courses in middle school, more than I ever remember. And so now being from the perspective of a second language learner and having to sit with my kids and them just like completely not getting it because they're wanting them to use their inductive reasoning, but they can't because they don't have the inductive reasoning to even begin using it because they need deductive reasoning. They need that help. That's where processing instruction comes in and gives teachers the steps of how to teach more effectively and how to say, okay, here you start with one simple thing, teach one at a time, and then you build on what you teach, and then you tell your learners, okay, here's where you focus. You have to have more special attention into what you're saying that learners need to pay attention to. You can't just present a topic and just be like, okay, learn this. You have to say, all right, pay attention to what I'm doing right here. And you have to scaffold it for your learners and model it for them so that they're able to do that. And I think production or processing instructions help us understand how the learners are going to learn in our classrooms.
Number 1, feedback. Number 2, corrective feedback. What was it?
Number 3.
What was number 3?
Number 3 was types of explicit instruction.
Okay, types of split instruction. Number 4, what types of intervention? And number 5 is
Processing instruction.
process instruction, which unfortunately, yes, what you say is right. They are depending on the inductive knowledge, and that's the perfect scenario that we don't have. That we wish all our students had that knowledge and could connect. So unfortunately, they don't. Anyway, that's it for tonight, girls. Enjoy your spring break.
Yes, bye.
Yes, yes.